My name is Renato Guerra. I serve as the program manager for the Improve Your Tomorrow University IYTU program at UC Davis. And I am joined with some of my colleagues. Also, fun fact, I am a UCD alumni, graduated class 2014. And I will toss it to Brother Juan.
Thank you, Renato. My name is Juan Garcia. I am the lead mentor for IYTU at UC Davis. I'm also a graduate from UC Davis, graduated in 2020. And I also really quickly want to thank Lori and Christina for taking time out of their day to come out. We really appreciate it. Yeah, we hope you guys enjoy it. And I'll toss it over to Tex.
Thank you, Juan and Renato. My name is Tex Wambui. I am a mentor for the Improve Your Tomorrow program at UC Davis and UCD alumni class of 2019. And I'd just like to say thank you, Lori and Christina, for joining us for this talk. And we look forward to hearing the wisdom you guys share.
Thank you. Real quick, sorry, Lori. I know you're about to go in.
It's okay.
Before Lori and Christina get started with their presentation, I just want to give a little context too of what IYTU is for those that don't know what it is. If you're watching this now or later, Improve Your Tomorrow is a college access program. We serve middle school, high school students in Sacramento, Stockton area. And we are fortunate to have a college program now at UC Davis where we're continuing to make sure that our young men are being served, make sure that they graduate on time, but also are prepared to enter the workforce. So that is the quick spiel. I'm going to stop talking, and now I will segue to our special guests, Lori and Christina. You have the show.
All right. So again, my name is Lori Fuller. I have been with UC Davis between my student and staff time about 25 years. So I have a long UCD history. And just thank you for the opportunity to be here and dialogue with you all as you continue to be supportive allies for not only the students, the male students that you work with, but also understanding the relationship between the staff at the female staff at UC Davis and other women that they will encounter. So thank you for your bravery and your opportunity to have this dialogue.
Thank you. As you all have thanked us, thank you all for having us. My name is Christina Jackson. I am a retention specialist for the Educational Opportunity Program. The Educational Opportunity Program at UC Davis specifically serves students who are from low-income families and the first in their family to go to college. Shout out to Juan, who is one of our program graduates and a student that I had the pleasure to work with for several years. So super, super excited to be here today. I've been on campus now. I think this is almost year 5. So it's always an great opportunity to meet new coworkers and certainly to support more male students getting to and through college. So thank you all for having us here.
All right.
So we thought today to share a few different things, but because we're going to be having some conversations about some vulnerable things, I wanted to first start off with sharing a little vulnerability myself, but also because anytime I have a chance to speak to young men, I love that opportunity. We recognize that they're underrepresented in higher education. So I thought today would be fitting to share a poem with you that I wrote for my little brother when he was about, 3 or 4 years old. He just wrote to me that he's having trouble staying on the call because I did invite him to come be here with us today, but we're gonna move on either way. Even if I'm not your big sister, and even if you don't have a big sister, if you need one, I'm available. And I know Lori is offering as well. So I thought first, let me just share with you a few words. So I call this piece Baby Brother. So like I said, if you don't have a sister, I'll be your sister today. Hey, baby brother, I'd like to be your muse, the one who provides education and comfort and keeps you from being the news. I'd like for us together to dismantle the master's tools, to dispose of the rules that foster domination and serve as a need for you to abuse women in order to gain your spotlight. I know you've seen that done, but that doesn't make it right. To be the kind of man you will want to be, it will require a fight. So here is some advice. Stay out of the streets and allow your efforts in school to grant your pull with the community. Find a group of people who are like you and create some much needed unity. And know that if you don't find anyone, brothers, it's okay if it ends up just being you and me. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's a part of this thing that we call living. But if you live with conviction, you will lessen your chances of having an unnecessary collision. I urge you to be the change, brother. There are enough of you living in prison. I believe in you, and I will be here to remind you of your oh so important mission. There will be times when the burden feels rough. It will be a lot to wear. I am your sister. I will be right here to help with the torment and terror. You are a king, a Black man, and my baby brother. I know the strength in our blood, and I'll tell you a secret. There is nothing built tougher. So you stand tall and be proud. Be Black, be loud, draw crowds, make women go wild, but respect them. Contrary to popular belief, it is your job to protect them. Marry a queen, take care of your offspring and everything in between. Be a man of your word. Go far, be heard, study birds, learn to fly. Be creative, don't let your spirit die. Avoid people who lie. Cry when you need to. It is because of you that we bleed blue. It is your well-being that we will see to, and we will preach to reach you. Men of UC Davis, watch us, and we will teach you. Thank you.
So as we move forward through this presentation, I want you to keep Christina's words as the foundation and the forefront of the wisdom that we share and the dialogue that we will have. So our goals today are to shed light on the experiences of women in male-dominated environments. We're going to highlight the struggles that women face in male-dominated environments, and particularly for women of color. We're going to educate you all in some ways you can be allies for women and girls, and also to remind you that we have your back, and as a people of color, we have to support one another in all of our endeavors. So we are going to use some of our Zoom features. So you should be familiar with annotating. Okay, if you're not familiar with the annotate feature, if you go to the top of your bar, you should be able, or at the bottom, depending on where it is, go ahead and click on annotate, and a screen should pop up. Okay, and Juan, if you can make sure they have access to that feature to do that. And you're going to, using the annotate feature, I want you to share your favorite song in your current playlist that celebrates and uplifts women and girls. So go ahead, Juan, can you make sure that annotate feature comes up so that they can see that, to be able to do that?
Yeah, so it's on where it says you are viewing Lori Fuller's screen. There's a view option tab next to it, and then it'll say annotate. It'll give you the option to annotate.
Right. So I want you all, your first task is to use this feature, and I want you to share the song from your playlist that you're listening to that uplifts women and girls. So go ahead and pull something from your playlist that uplifts women and girls. And I'm not able to see, Juan, is there anything coming up on the screen other than what, or do I need to stop screen sharing for you all to see that annotate feature? Let me see, you might have to, because I'm not seeing anything pop up. So let me go ahead and do that. Hold on one second. Oh, I didn't put it up, sorry, the whiteboard. There we go, are you able to see it now? Are you all able to see the end? There we go, all
Yes.
right. So go ahead and put those songs in. You can draw, you can use text. If you don't know how, just click on text. And if you click on text, it will let you go ahead and type in. So I want you to think of that song from your playlist that's uplifting women and girls. That's your first task. Okay, so I see a Dalte remake. I'll have to look that song up. I don't know. So throw out those songs from your playlist that uplift women and girls. I'm going to give you another 30 seconds to a minute to throw out a song or two. And if you don't have one, you don't have one right now. It's okay. No judgment, no judgment. All right, so we have one song on the board. Your next task is I want you to pull the songs from your playlist that do not uplift women and girls. Go ahead and put those songs on the screen that do not uplift women and girls. Okay, Taisha got brown skin girl, okay. So we have 2 that are uplifting. I'm going to ask you to now put the songs from your playlist that do not uplift women and girls.
Excuse me.
That do not. So go ahead and put those songs out if you have it in your playlist that do not uplift women and girls. Renato said too many songs, unfortunately. Okay. Anybody else out there? Anyone else? Too many songs. After the Storm, uplifts. So I'm gonna have to go listen to that one. All right. So again, as we think about the presentation for today, I'm gonna go ahead and share my PowerPoint again. The reason why I asked you all to do that, as we think about uplifting women and girls, like our presentation is, it's language, it's leadership, and it's love. So we're gonna dive in talking about the words that we use, okay? Understanding the power of language. Your words matter, okay? And always remembering that. And not just for women and girls, but for people in general, your words matter. But in the context of women, and girls, remembering your words matter. So whether you have a little sister, your girlfriend, your wife, your mother, your grandmother, the words that you speak matter. And the words that others speak matter. And that you allow others to speak in your company about women and girls. And understanding why certain words or phrases are offensive. For example, I have a 12-year-old. So in my household, there are things that are very important at this point, that there's certain things we don't say with a 12-year-old girl in the room. Understanding how that affects her development, her self-esteem. And I want you to always ask yourself, when you are saying something, or if someone is saying something in your company, is this okay for your grandmother, your mother, your sister, your auntie, your future daughter? And if the answer is no, then it's not okay for someone else's loved one, and you need to speak up, right? We don't tolerate offensive things being said about the people we care about, the people that we love. And even if you don't know someone's daughter, sister, auntie, wife, or whatever the case may be. And the words on the side of the screen on this picture are the lyrics to an India Arie song, when she says, talk to her like you want somebody to talk to your mama, just like you fight for your sister if you know someone had dissed her. How are you going to care for your daughter, but turn around and talk bad about her mama? Same way you listen to your auntie, never interrupt her while you speak. And I think culturally, we all know what an auntie and a grandma means in our communities and our culture. The respect that we have for auntie, that we have for grandma. Make sure you're giving that same respect to all women around you, even if they're not related to you. And then understanding the power of influence and leadership. As men, you have power, influence, and leadership. That's just given because of your positionality as a man, okay? And as a man, more often, you'll probably be in positions of power and influence. And when you have those opportunities, make it your mission to make a difference when you can, and advocate for equity within your female staff, your colleagues, the women that you work with, and also those in your home and your community. Your leadership, you'll have that opportunity to lead again in your workplace, in your community, in your home, and understand the disparities that exist. Understand that there is something called male privilege, and understanding what that is, and how to use your privilege to help others. Being cognizant, we always say having a seat at the table, right? We want to have a seat at the table as people of color often, right? And we deserve to have a seat at the table. But it's not only recognizing who's at the table, but it's also recognizing who is not at the table when decisions are being made. And oftentimes when you look around the table, you're going to see that sometimes women are not at the table, particularly women of color. And then also when we think about power, influence, and leadership, also understanding the power of active listening. And what does that mean? What does it mean to actually listen to someone? Not think that you know everything, or that you know more than someone because of your gender or your position. Truly understanding the art of active listening, and not listening to respond, but listening to hear what someone is saying to you, their feelings, their emotions, their reasons behind something. Active listening also means asking questions, clarifying. And then I am going to turn it over to Christina, who's going to talk to you about leading with love.
Thank you, Lori. So we wanted to make sure we had kind of some breath as we talk about power, influence, leadership, and language, and how those things show up in the workplace. And what I wanted to share was that I am able to share with you generally what women experience in male dominated fields, but I wanted to offer kind of a different perspective to that. As a woman, I tend to work in fields that are dominated by women, but that serve men. And so I think about what happens when men don't, either men are not represented in certain places, how that impacts other men, or the impact that it has on women to continue to have uh, careers that are more like emotionally laborious. So I wanted to remind you to think of love in a professional environment, right? Because we have the love that we have for our families and love that we have for our friends. But I also want to encourage you to think about the love that you have for your coworkers and colleagues. And so as you think about love in a professional environment, I want to remind you that love in a professional environment means understanding, listening, and leading with insight. So it means people don't always have to tell you where the issues are. You're looking for that insight. So love, understand, listen, and have insight. Women in male dominated fields certainly experience isolation. They experience lower compensation and promotion. We know that nationally, women make less money for the same jobs than men. So we also see that sometimes personal growth may be stunted due to lack of practice, or organizations that don't create leadership opportunities for women. And so one of the other things that I want you to think about as you move into professional life is thinking about cooperative collaboration. So often if you're working with, if there's a man and a woman working on a project, sometimes the woman will carry more of the, typing and logistical tasks. And so just making sure that if you're a man leading a project, that you're leading with cooperative collaboration, meaning you're contributing as much labor to the collaboration as you expect the output to actually have. Here are some other challenges that I've noticed. As I mentioned, being a woman who works in a female dominated field, but we serve males. So I work on a college, I work at UC Davis. We know that UC Davis, like most other colleges, are 61% female or woman and 39% men. And so some of the things that I've noticed when we're creating programs to try to support men going into higher ed, we don't even have enough men at the table to give us valuable advice in terms of like creating that diversity of thought when it comes to services and programs and our environments. Juan can even vouch for this. I've noticed in my workspace on campus how men and women's body sizes tend to be very different. Men tend to be bigger, women tend to be smaller. And the more men we have work in our space, the smaller our space tends to feel because it's usually very female dominated. And so just thinking about the fact that we don't have a lot of males in career staff positions, I don't think some of these things are being considered in terms of the environment as we're accepting more students. The other thing that I've noticed as a woman working in a female dominated environment that's serving males is that sometimes males want more visibility for real modeling and leadership that they can only get from women because there are no men in those places. So as we're thinking about your positionality in terms of, working, being a leader as a man, also think about spaces where men are not represented and how the male clients in that role might be impacted. And then the next slide, we talk about leading with language. So one of the things that I'm really proud of in my work is that all of my professional experience has been serving marginalized communities. So serving people of color, serving students from LGBT, former foster youth, marginalized backgrounds, first generation, low income students. And when you're serving a diverse population, it is really, really necessary as a leader to practice and promote inclusion, not just in your action, but in your language. And so I want you all to think today, as we are having this discussion, where does your leadership philosophy come from? Because all of us have privileges. I certainly have privileges at work. And I want us to all think about how do we leverage our privileges with our leadership philosophies. So I wanted to share with you briefly a few of my leadership philosophies and how they kind of help me to make sure that I'm promoting inclusion, not just in my language, but in my action. So adaptive leadership is a practice of creating opportunities for which there is no blueprint. So I'm really proud to go into an organization and say, I am a problem solver. I am a strategic thinker. I'm able to see kind of the bird's eye view and be able to create some opportunities for us to move forward. You want an adaptive leader in your space because one of the things that I think I do really well is include many different types of learning styles when I'm thinking about programs that we're creating for our students. So not just for the students that are visual learners, but the students that are auditory learners or the students that are tactile learners. So adaptive leadership allows me to adapt to the different population of students that I'm working with. Critical race theory is very important to me because I tend to think as a person that most issues that have to do with marginal identity start with race. Even if there are other intersecting identities, usually race is a factor that we can kind of start with. If we can unpack those, we can typically work through some of the other items. So I almost always look at problems through critical race theory. If race is involved, likely the problem. Daring leadership. So I think being a leader requires you to be able to have a great deal of vulnerability because we're working with people and people have feelings. And so it's very important when I come as a leader or as a supervisor, I do want to make sure we get things done, right? Getting tasks done is very important, but I want to make sure that I'm not sacrificing the work getting done at the cost of the people not feeling heard and not feeling respected. So being a daring leader is very important to me. And then lastly, I want to talk about challenge and support because I work with students. So I like to be here to help, but I also like to make sure you're helping yourself. So challenge and support allows me to help you with step one, to allow you to practice step two, and then for me to come back as a partner for step three. So I'm also trying to encourage other people to utilize the best of their talents and strengths as a way to be able to develop a leadership philosophy. So if you don't have your own leadership philosophies, here are 4 potentially that you can research a little bit further to learn a little bit more about. And I think I got one more here. Oh, got a couple more here. So I love reading. I shouldn't say I love reading. I love audiobooks. I love listening to books. Since I finished grad school, reading is not one of my favorite things to do. But I will say now I'm doing a combination of audio and books. But anytime I'm working with students, these are some top recommendations I have. Atomic Habits. So for some of you, you're like, I want to be a better leader than I have been, but I don't know how. Atomic Habits is all about helping you to set identity-based goals. Quite often when we set goals, we're not successful because we make goals based on an event. I'm encouraging you to make goals based on an identity. Think about who you want to be and then make steps to become that person. One of James Clear's sticking points, he says, at the end of the day, ask yourself, how many votes did you take to be the type of person that you want to be? So if you like that type of thinking, check out James Clear. How to lead when you're not in charge. Sometimes we are not the person that's in charge, but we're at the table. Clay Scroggins' book, he's actually the reader of the book, so I enjoy hearing his voice as well. But he gives some really, really strong points in terms of how to actually own your leadership. You are always in charge. You might not be in charge of the people, but you're always in charge of yourself. And so he encourages you to really think about how to charge yourself with becoming a better leader. Because today we're specifically talking about how work might impact women women. Valerie Young's book, The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women, talks about imposter syndrome. And this is a great read for women and men. But one of the things she says about imposter syndrome is if you have human parents, you likely have imposter syndrome. And as far as I know, we all have human parents. So check it out. She has some really, really solid points to just help you drive home where your imposter syndrome might be showing up. Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans is an excellent book for students, adults, and everybody. They basically say, think of your life as a design problem. The reason we have chairs is because people got tired of standing up. So if you haven't been able to figure out what your life looks like, then figure out what the problem is and then design what you want to be around that problem. And then lastly, The Little Book of Talent by Daniel Coyle. I have probably listened to this book 10 times. It's only like 2 hours, so you can listen to it while you make dinner or, you know, while your parents make dinner if y'all aren't doing that yet. But it really encourages you to think about your talent and your strengths and how to do things more effectively by just working from your talents. And I'll be the first to tell y'all, I only take on things that I can do well, right? I work from my talents. It allows me to be more efficient. It allows me to have more cooperative collaborations. And it allows me to feel like I know what I'm contributing to an organization. So here are some powerful book recommendations that we have for you. And then lastly, I just have a couple of tools. I will need to send these to you, to your organizers for you to be able to access. They are hyperlinks, but these are a few tools that I like to share with students. So the feelings wheel, I actually received this from my therapist. So I also try to normalize people going to talk to other people about challenges that they have. And certainly working with other people could be a challenge you have, but the feelings wheel is a way to make sure you're in possession of your feelings and that you have the ability to describe them. Also, sometimes when you are not able to be a good leader, it's because you have imposter syndrome yourself. So I thought it might be a good idea for you to check into the 5 types of imposter syndrome. I'm personally a superwoman and a natural genius. So when I notice that some of those traits are coming out, I can immediately stop myself and tell myself, you're not a superwoman, take that cape off, and then figure out how to kind of rework myself. And then the last thing is, this is an article written by James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, where he is specifically targeting that piece about identity-based habits. And so if you don't want to read the whole book, here's a little excerpt for you. So I know I threw a lot of information out there pretty quickly. So if you all have any questions today, obviously we'll have time for that during our dialogue, but later I will also share my contact information. So if you want to follow up with me personally about any of these tools, that we have the opportunity to do that. And then we created an opportunity. Lori, you want to tell them about our opportunity? I feel like I'm talking a lot.
Yes, I can. So Christina and I created a job offer for you gentlemen. And it's only for the gentlemen that are on the call today. So if you have other folks who are not on the call, unfortunately, they will not be able to apply. But the Center for Women at Work is looking for a community engagement specialist. And we are looking for someone to provide new ideas for supporting women in work and in the workplace. And the ideal candidate for this position will utilize feedback from this presentation to support the Women at Work mission. So if you're interested in this job, you will submit a cover letter detailing what you learned today and how you will use this information to be an equitable leader. How will you encourage other boys and men to practice what you learned today, giving specific examples and tangible actions that you will take? The job application is due by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, February 9th, and you must send your job application to both Christina and I. And if you are offered the job, you will get a $25 signing bonus, in which we will transfer either through a Zelle, Cash App, or a $25 gift card. So I'm going to give you a moment to take a screenshot of this screen if you are interested in the job. And it is due on the 9th, all right? So if you haven't noticed, this is an opportunity for you to take some of what you learned today and to reflect on it, put it in writing, and to be able to share it and think about how will you take this to do tangible things in the community as you move forward and navigate either your professional career, or all the other things that you are going to do. So an opportunity to reflect on your learning, because oftentimes we get learning and then we don't do anything with it. We kind of just store it somewhere. So we're challenging and encouraging you to do something with the things that you learned today through these slides, as well as the dialogue that we are going to have. And I think Jalen has a hand raised. I see a hand raised pop up. So you can unmute Jalen and ask your question.
So I was wondering, so like, do you have to be in the same city to do it or no?
I'm sure, Jalen, you want a chance to get money because you always want money. So little brother, you can apply on your own by sending me the cover letter. And if you do a good job, I will send you the $25 to send it to.
I get it to you about 30 minutes.
Question, Jalen.
It'll be done about 30 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Jalen. I appreciate that.
Okay.
So I'm going to stop screen sharing and I am going to turn off my slides. And this is an opportunity for us to dialogue, because when we dialogue, we know we learn from one another. We can ask questions because you all might have come with some questions in mind or some things in mind. Again, we had a short window and we didn't want to talk to you for an entire hour and just tell you things, rather than having a dialogue. Because I think we do some of our best learning through dialogue and answering questions and clarifying and understanding one another. Right. Hi, Taisha, you gotta hop up. Hi. T, let me see your face. Give me 2 seconds of your face. Seconds of your face. I was gonna ask.
Yes, I actually have to go back to work, but I wanted to hop in and show my support and thank you all for putting this on. This is a great and amazing topic.
Thank you.
Bye, T.
Bye.
I got a quick question, and I think Juan and Tex may have something as well. And anybody that's on, feel free to either put it in the chat if you have a question, or maybe just a comment, something that you've learned about. I want to start off, similar to Christina, and kind of some different things as well. But we only serve young men, right? Middle school, high school, college students, and our staff is mostly men. We do have the first female program manager that serves at our middle school in West Sacramento. And as you all were talking, I'm thinking, how do I advocate in a way that's not like, I'm trying to put her on the spot, but I'm trying to lift her up, where it's like, why are you giving me, kind of separate attention, compared to like maybe our male colleagues? That was just something that was running through my mind. I don't know if even that question makes sense, but that's just something that ran through my mind of like, how do I not make her the special, like, because you're the woman of the team, but I want to be able to advocate in moments that are necessary. Hopefully that makes sense.
I would say one of the first things is asking her about the things that she needs to effectively do her job, right? What are some challenges that she's facing in her job? And it could be from the perspective of being a woman or just the work that she's doing in that particular school. But I think you have to ask that person, right? Christina and I can't tell you what may be her particular challenges because I don't know the work that she's doing. I don't know what her caseload looks like. But I think being able to have questions, and I think that goes back to just a supervisor role, right? Whoever her supervisor is should be a person that's checking in on a regular basis with, is she having opportunities to develop professionally? What are her goals in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? And of course, it's not a matter of I'm going to do this for you because you are a woman per se, but also respecting, is she a mother, right? Does she have a family that she's taking care of? We know there is a big difference between male employees and female employees that have families. Oftentimes, moms are the ones who are having these feelings of guilt because they're doing the drop-offs, the pickups, the dentist appointments. I got to leave for this. I got to do dance recital. Where oftentimes men don't have that because they often have the autonomy to kind of professionally grow without that guilt of parenting, right? So I think it's asking this person, what do they need? Are they having the tools and the resources and the opportunities to grow in the ways in which they want to? And not putting her in a helper role either as a woman, because it happens. Like Christina said, we get those helper roles, right? We're expected to decorate for the parties and it's like, no, we don't always want the helper role, right? Giving her opportunities to lead in the ways in which she wants to lead and leading from her strengths.
It's good. Thank you.
I think I would underscore much of, I know you probably felt like the question was choppy, but it is a really valuable question. So at my last university, I was in charge of creating the Men of Color Alliance,
Oh, wow.
the Black Male Alliance. And, you know, for myself, I always wondered like how much I should insert myself, you know, because I wanted the males to know that it was a space for them, but it was my job.
Yeah.
However, here's what I'll say. The men that I was able to connect with to get them to run the program, because, you know, they had something I didn't have. What I always felt was important was for them not to acknowledge my gender unless there was a reason to. So like, I think if you're acknowledging all the time, like that we have a woman on the team, but we're not acknowledging like why specifically this is important in that moment, you know, I wouldn't bring it up just to bring it up, because then that doesn't feel inclusive, right? That feels like you're constantly like calling me out. The other thing is just to recognize that the other gentlemen in your program are watching the way you respond to her or the way you interact with her. And so I would say the most important thing is just like the real modeling. Like, what are you showing them in terms of like the type of work that you assign and that sort of thing? Like, are you giving helper roles? The other thing too is some women want to only have the helper role. So I want to just underscore that it's very important to understand how, you know, they want to show up. Yeah, I think just, you know, transparency is really everything. And, you know, asking them certainly like what they want, I think is really, really, really essential.
That's great. Thank you.
It's like the never calling out. It's kind of like being the person of color, the only person of color on the staff who always gets asked during the cultural holidays on how we should celebrate when everybody else is white. That was what it would be like for a woman sitting at the table. And you're like, but look at Sally. And then it'd be like, it's like saying, look, Renato's Latino.
Right.
What do you think? You know, it's using that same kind of respect and philosophy, right? Like, would it be offensive if I was the only Black male in the room with a colleague of white folks who always looked to me or pointed out that I was Black, right? Like, I don't want you to not see me as a woman, of course, because I am, but can we not make it like, it's, if that makes sense, just it not being offensive, right?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I'm gonna toss it over to Juan. I know he got something locked and loaded to maybe ask y'all.
Yeah, so I came with a question while during the presentation. Y'all were talking about how language plays like an important role in like calling out when we see that women are being talked to like disrespectfully and things like that. But my question is like, how do we approach those situations when it's at home? You know, like when, like, let's say, because I know from my experiences, the way my mom treats myself and my brothers is very different than the way she treats my sisters, you know, kind of giving them like things like chores, assigning them chores, you know, limiting like their time going out. But when it comes to the sons, like she doesn't really, you know, create those restrictions. So like, how do we go about approaching those situations, you know, so that we are like, because I definitely try to be as supportive as possible, you know, for my sisters and call it out, but, you know, like trying to do it like in a way that's not disrespectful to my mom as well, you know.
And I think that's really important because it's being honest, right? Your mama's house is your mama's house, right? And that's mama's house. And no, you can't bring all of your UC Davis diversity, equity, and inclusion all up in her house because she's gonna cuss you out. Let's just be real, right? That's what mom is gonna tell you because that's how she operates her house. And I think you can approach it in the most respectful way, but you can also model it to your sisters. If nothing else, it's modeling to your sisters that you recognize as their big brother, that there are differences. So that may look like, you know, when mom says, you know what, sister, go chop, cook, clean. Maybe you're going in there to help your sisters chop, cook, and clean, right? Maybe you're showing your sisters how to change a tire if your dad doesn't think that they should. Maybe it's like, you know what, mom, you let me come home at 10 o'clock. So let's think about how do we allow my sister to safely come home at 10 o'clock? Because for mom and dad, it's about your sister's safety and protecting and all of that. So how do we protect her and also let her have some freedom at the same time? So it may not always be about what you say to your mom rather than what you model to your sisters, because that's what let's be real, we ain't changing our parents. We're not, especially when we live in their house and they're paying the bills, we can't change them. But what you can change is how you show up for your sisters.
And I'll add to that one, going back to what I said in the beginning, understand, listen, and insight. So often I have conversations with students about like, how do I say this to my parents? You know, they are out of touch. You know, I'll even just share personally, me and my brother are 18 years apart. So, and he's a boy and I'm a girl. And there are definitely ways in which my mom responds to us very, very differently. I don't even know if my brother actually recognizes it because of our age difference. I was already a college student.
I do.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there are some very different, ways. And so what I tend to say is insight. So like, you aren't going to get your mom to change, but you could understand something about your mom where she doesn't like being treated different. And trying to use that as an example of like asking a question, like, starting off with a question that gives a great comparison so she can be like upset about it. And then you kind of show her like, well, that's what this is. And I'll tell you all an example that I even shared at work yesterday with leadership, or as it relates to leadership. Many of us are watching our election and our political landscape right now, and we are seeing that we have some people who have a pattern or history of not being held accountable, and what happens when that happens, right? But I try to remind my colleagues that we play that out even at work all the time, where we have the big boss, that is constantly doing things that are stopping us from being able to move forward. We can call it out when we see it on TV, but we have so much trouble calling it out when it's us that has to be the person to, create that act of like, you're not being a good leader. So what I would say is to really think about like most things in life, even if none of us had got here to get today, apparently there's 6 degrees of separation. So there was just 6 people we needed to find in between to connect with one of us. I want us to think about that in terms of like our leadership practice, and all of that comes from our frame of reference. So, practicing at home, how to have those conversations allows you to have better practice in terms of when you're working with people in public, in terms of how to work across those things. And so I would say using that practice of like, Juan, I know, for example, you've been a supervisor, you've had to have difficult conversations. Sometimes I use some of those same practices when I'm talking to my family. They don't know I learned that from work, right? We're first gen. These are professional skills that we're getting, they didn't get, right? And so it's always just an opportunity to listen to them and try to engage with them. You're not going to change their mind, but it is important for them to know that there's a perspective that they may be missing. And it's awesome if you can be the person to kind of like create that dialogue. Also, you get to show them what a cool kid they raised. Like, my mom thinks I'm dumb smart, like if you ask my mom what I do, she's like, she the chancellor at UC Davis, she don't know what I do, right? But she thinks, she's just like, my daughter's smart, she got degrees, she do stuff, she knows stuff, right? And so it's always a great opportunity to show your family, like, look at who you raised. You raised me to be a critical thinker. You raised me to even question what you've taught me. And I think that, parents, I'm not a parent, but, Lori, would you appreciate that when your baby?
I definitely would. And I would say, for Juan, it's the actions, right? Even though your mom may not change, she's going to see and recognize what you're doing when you're feeling like there's this disparity between you and your sisters, right? That's the one thing that no matter what, people see our actions. And even if they may not always say something, mom will notice and your sisters will appreciate it, because the dynamic between your sisters and you will be stronger, right? If they see that, you're doing these things and you're communicating that to them and letting them know, telling them, I recognize, there's a difference and I don't like the difference. And this is what I'm doing because I don't like the difference. That is your tangible action, not allowing it to happen. You can't change your mom, but you can change your actions. And your sisters will appreciate it. Don't nobody want to cook and clean all the time?
Yeah. Thank
cool.
you.
No, we don't. That was a really great question, Juan.
Other questions? And again,
yeah.
Tex?
Yeah, before I get to my question, actually, I wanted to see if Taisha would like to introduce herself. She was going to be the other guest speaker, but there was time conflict. So would you like to introduce yourself, Taisha?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Taisha Watts. I am a UC Davis alumni. I graduated in 2019. I was
2019, my teen growing up.
I was an SOA for Lori at EAOP. I am currently, I just transitioned to my job, so this is like my second week. So I used to be a legislative aide for Senator Pan at the state capitol, and now I am a budget analyst at the Chancellor's Office of Community Colleges.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Taisha. So this is a question I guess anybody can answer. It's kind of shifting from when you guys were giving your presentation, I was actually thinking this question and I shared it with the team first and they were like, I don't know if this question, but the question is, do you guys believe that reparations should be not only towards race, but it should also be towards gender?
That's an interesting question.
Interesting.
And just I guess to help you guys on that is what will be you guys' like biggest pet peeve when it comes to like gender analysis? That kind of helps out.
Okay, I'll start with the first question. Do I think there should be reparations? I even struggle with that for people of color because I often feel like if you give people something, but you don't give them the tools, then they won't use it appropriately. So you give people a bunch of money, but they don't know about financial literacy or they haven't decided what values they have in life and how they're going to spend that money, then I think it could be counterproductive. Here's what I will say as it relates to women and reparations. I think the best way for us to repair things are not necessarily to throw money at them, but policy. And I think that if we truly want to show the value that we have I think workplace needs reform in general, right? Let me just start off by saying that, not just for women. I think the 40-hour work week does not necessarily bring the productivity that we were expecting. We certainly know that in workplaces, there's a lot of hierarchical leadership where there's like abuse on the bottom and, that sort of thing. So I think in general, we need to overhaul the way we see work. And I think that people should be able to work more toward their strengths, interests, and talents as opposed to serving capitalism. And I think that if we just had in general a work environment that was meant to support the people, then we wouldn't even need, money. What we need is just change. We need to the point that Lori made about we know that if we have places where the workforce is predominantly women, a student mentioned last week, why don't they have more healthcare, babysitters, like people to take care of our kids when we go places because they know we have kids. And so my thing is I just think if we want to incentivize women to being a mother is work and having a job is work. And I just think that we need to do a better job at quantifying what a job is, because then we don't need reparations. We just need to understand why a woman cannot work till 4:00 if school ends at 3:30, right? Because it's now we're just trying to give people money for them to forget about the fact that we're excluding what their needs are, as opposed to just reconstructing the work environment to allow us to be humans. And so I think often we don't think about people doing the work. We just think about money needing to be made. And, COVID has taught us, if anything.
Exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
You can't have a workforce if people aren't healthy. And so money is not the problem. I think we need an overhaul of what is work? Why do we do work? And helping people to see how what they do impacts the other person, because then I think that we would be more equitable in terms of just how we did things. So I'm not a fan of reparations for either, because I just feel like it's an easy way to not ask the right questions. And then your last question, you talked about, remind me, you said something about gender analysis. Give me a little bit. I think I know where I want to go, but I want to make sure I answer your question.
The question was, what is your biggest pet peeve when it comes to gender analysis? What is that one thing that ticks you off when people are trying to differentiate female and male?
So the first thing that came to mind was my senior project from undergrad. I was a sociology major. And what I wanted to show was that we start to condition boys and girls to think of themselves as intellects or as consumers at a very young age. So I will charge all of y'all, go to as many toy stores or stores as y'all want to go to today. Walmart is one that a lot of us go to, and then they're an egregious offender of promoting males as intellectuals at a young age and women as consumers. So I immediately would see like kids computer games. My little brother was actually a kid when I did this, which is why I was interested in it. He didn't even know that, but that's one of the reasons I wanted him to come here today. He needed to learn more about what his sister be doing in life. So you will see a computer game. All y'all got little sisters, cousins, they have these little laptop looking things, right? When you go into the store, the boys' toys are always red, green, black, gray, you know, dark colors. And then the girls' toy, same computer, but it's only gonna be pink or purple, and it might have a little silver accent or something like that, right? But it's never gonna be any other colors. That same toy for boys, they're gonna suggest that he's 4 or 5. For girls, they're going to suggest that they're 7 or 8, right? And so some of the also, if you go in toy stores like Toys R Us, there's 2 aisles of boys' toys, and then there's 10 aisles of girls' toys. And so all the girls' toys also include them putting on makeup and holding babies and pushing carts. You don't see any of those kind of things. Men need to eat too, but there are no cooking stuff in their aisles, right? So when I think of gender analysis, the part that upsets me the most is thinking about how young we start to socialize and how long we start to construct those identities. Last thing I'll say with that is that there are actually biological differences between men and women. For example, I believe it's from Think Pink, if you need the reference, it's a book where men have better smell, but women have better sight. But even, or like when women give birth to baby boys are actually weaker because of the fight of the mom's chromosomes versus the male. But when boys are born, we say, oh, he's so strong, he's so tough. It's really the little girls that are actually strong and tough, right? And so what bothers me most about gender analysis is that it starts so young that by the time people are adults, they can't even tease out the parts that have been biologically versus socially constructed because they start feeding us these cues so young. So I'm mostly upset that they feed us the cues young and that they constantly undermine the intellectual capabilities for women versus men when they're the same toys. And we all know that boys are the ones that actually mature slower according to science. So it's constantly given these like mixed messages. So those would be my pet peeves for gender analysis.
Good questions. Other questions?
No, I have no more questions. If anybody else would like to answer that question, please feel free.
I was just to add on about you, like what thoughts on reparations. I would say my thoughts are more in line with like pay equity, because like even in my workforce now, seeing how much a male will make versus a woman to do the exact same job bothers me. So like just even like a little personal story, my old job, like there's literally a male in my office who does exactly nothing. Like he's been there for like 6 years and he makes the most out of all of us in the office. It's 1 male and 3 women, and he makes the most out of all of us, and we did majority of the work. So that is what bothers me, is that like failing upward basically. So I wouldn't necessarily say like reparations, but more of like a pay equity for women, making sure that women are paid to get the money that they deserve.
And I think for you all, you all are developing professionals, right? It's, while you may not be able to change policy on this large global scale, it's in those areas where you have the influence to change, use the power that you have to speak up and change, right? Are you all the culprits of pay equity of women? No. But if you are in a space where you are a supervisor or a manager or someone who has influence to go to your boss to say, you know what, let's look at the difference between Jeff's salary, Renato's salary, and Christina's salary when the job description is the same, right? Because no, you're not the person who's going to be on Capitol Hill making the changes, right? They may not listen to you there, but when you have the ability for someone to listen to you in a smaller space that you have some influence over, and even if it doesn't change, at least you know you spoke up, right? Because yes, your female staff will know. We gonna know because we did the research. We gonna know how much everybody make, right? Especially if it's public service. You know, and when you know that, being able to just say something at the very least, and then when you know that, holding those folks accountable who aren't doing any work, because oftentimes, depending on the job, women do get stuck doing more of the work, right? We the sunshine committee, we all that stuff. Jeff is like, we become the sunshine committee, you know, all the holidays, all of that stuff, right? The birthday cards. Think about it. In the jobs that you've had, how many times have you been responsible for the birthday card? Exactly, right? Something as simple as that. And it may be because we're the one thinking about the birthdays, right? We're the one who have that feeling to make sure everybody in the office feels a certain way. But it's not very often that the men in the office are going to think about the birthday card, right? That everybody signs and it just often doesn't happen. So it's from as small as the birthday card to the larger project that there is no woman at the table who has a voice. Oftentimes people make policies about us, but we're not at the table sharing our voice. Don't make policies and practices that impact me, but I'm not at the table sharing why I should leave work at 3:35 to get to school by 4 to get my kid when you ain't got no kids, when you're not the one doing that, right? So I think it's just being mindful of, am I now in a position of influence and power that I can make a difference? And while it may not be global, it can impact these people's lives and professions that I'm working with now to take them to another level. And don't mansplain, please. Don't mansplain. And understand and recognizing what that is, right? And when you're doing it, because sometimes you may just be used to that based on the company that you keep. And it's not that your intent versus your impact, right? You may not intend for something to come off a particular way, but it does. You know, understanding your power and your privilege as a male. And we all have them in certain instances. As women, yes, there are some privileges that we are afforded in particular situations. No matter what group you're a part of, there's some privilege at certain times, right? But recognizing your privilege as a male for the women around you. You know, whether you're a father now, you're an aspiring father, an uncle, a big cousin, you know, whatever the case may be, just knowing the role that you can play in truly impacting the lives of girls and women.
So I guess final question would be, what are some resources or or even like centers on campus and off campus where young men of color can continue to learn more about how to be allies and support women?
I think WRC, you know, Christina gave you tons of books. How about this? Reading the books that women read. I can tell you this, and just for an example, in relationships, women are always reading books about how to be a better partner, right? Like, read the books that we read. It's kind of like if you had the answers to the job interview questions before you got there, that's what it is, right? Asking questions also to the women around you, because what may work for Christina may not work for me, right? And not just because Christina gave you some advice, now you're going to apply her advice to every woman you meet, because it doesn't work that way. You have to be able to talk to the people that you are around, building relationships, getting to know people. Because what Christina might be okay with, Taisha's not okay with, I'm not okay with. So everything is not cookie cutter. It's kind of like my Black friend, the person who has that one Black friend, and because they have that one Black friend, whatever text says, does, or whatever, that is their standard for Black people. And that's not it, right? Because text, that's text, but that may not be Jeff. You know, so I think it's about knowing the folks that you're around, that you're working with, and simple common sense and respect, right? What does simple common sense and respect look like when we're dealing with people? Not women, not men, but just people. You know, the saying when we were little was treat people how you want to be treated. No, you treat people how they want to be treated. because you might accept some bullshit that somebody else might not accept. So you treat people how they want to be treated. It's like literally always asking common sense. You know, like if this showed up in the front of the LA Times or the Sacramento Bee, would I be okay with the world knowing this is what I think, I feel, or I did? And ask that, right? And if you can dissect it, and if it's okay on the Sacramento Bee, then maybe your actions are okay. But if your actions can't show up on the front of the Sacramento Bee, then you might need to rethink them. Or your words or your practices. And again, we are not the spokesperson for every woman in the world, because Latina women may feel totally different. API women may feel totally different. You know, Native women may feel totally different. White women are going to definitely probably feel totally different. Okay, because their experiences are different. There are differences. Okay. But I can say, just thinking about respect and common sense with whatever you say, do, and leading with good intentions. If your best intentions are always there, you're more than likely probably going to do a good job, right? If you're using respect and good intentions. Can we ever go wrong with respect? I don't think so.
I'll just underscore a resource that I got the chance to take part in this weekend. So y'all have to wait a week. But I want to remind you that the WRRC puts on a production every year called Our Stories, where every story is a student or a staff, faculty, or community person telling you about the particular struggle that they have based on being a woman. And the stories are really creative. And this year I watched it on Zoom, but I hope next year to see it in person. But I think that those are opportunities to give you like breadth of some of the things that women are experiencing, not just in the workplace, but, you know, just being women. As I said, that insight could be very, very helpful. I want to be mindful that I have a 1:30, so I will have to run. But I want to thank you all so much for having me here today. It was certainly a pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I hope this was helpful. And then if you all have other questions, please email, text, and Renato and Juan have our information. So please reach out if you have other questions, or if you ever need us to talk to a larger group of middle and high school boys.
Thank you so much again, Christina and Lori. Have a great and wonderful day. And thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for having us. And thanks for coming again, Jalen. You can log off now and go do nothing for the rest of your day except work on this job thing. So you